This thing that I have found is what I would call my gracious space. Good morning, everyone. This is Jack with Gracious Spaces. And as I always like to say, we're high atop this beautiful city that I live in, Old Town Orange. And today we have a very, very special guest who's taken some time out of his schedule to sit with us. Good morning, Steve Soest.
At a railroad station in Baton Rouge, there's a train to Crescent City.
Good morning, Jack. How are you today?
Doing okay.
Thank you. You know, when Leo and I started doing this, I don't know if this is useful information or not, but we record on Tuesdays. And I was like, who are we going to get to come out on a Tuesday? But oddly enough, a lot of people are available on Tuesday mid-morning. So thank you for doing that. That's the middle of a work week for you.
I get to make my own schedule, so it's worked out great.
That's awesome. Well, so Steve, you are one of the longest running owner-operated guitar businesses in Orange County. And so that's like 50 years if I'm doing some math in my head.
52 years in December.
Wow. So take us back to that very first year. What led you? What leap of faith? Tell us how you got started.
Well, I've been playing guitar in, garage bands since high school.
Yeah.
And later on, when I got into college, I started going around to pawn shops and stuff and buying stuff, fixing it up, reselling it. And I met up with a guy named Chuck Sledge. He had Orange Pawn Shop, and he was a musician too. He was from New Mexico. Okay. And I said, look, I'm going out and buying this stuff. Let's partner up on it. You can hang it in here and sell it. So I set up a bench in the back of his place and made a little sign that said Soest Guitar Repair. And we just started going in and, buying and selling stuff. We'd find closeouts from companies and fix the stuff up and sell it. And I did that for about 2 years. And then I went off on my own, moved into a barn up on East Chapman. Right before you go up the grade where the 76 station is, my grandparents had a horse ranch on Crawford Canyon that came out onto Chapman.
That was country.
Oh, there was no two-lane road. It was
it
was county then, and then they changed the address and everything when the city took it over.
Yeah,
and I was there until about 1980.
Okay,
and then moved to several places, Anaheim, the old Licorice Pizza building for a while, and Main Street, and I had a place called Main Street Music with a partner. He had a company called Instrument Referral Service, and he would take stuff on consignment.
Wow.
So we put this repair shop in the back. Then we took on an amp guy, and we moved to Anaheim. And then ended up back in Orange about 1984 or so. And then I've been back here ever since.
And that's your current location?
No, I was at another place up on Eckhoff for a while. Okay. And then a new building was built at the end of Eckhoff, and we took that over and built it all out. Then they sold it, and they kicked us out of there. Yeah. So then I got to the place, I was on Maine by the railroad tracks for 21 years or so.
Yeah.
And then I decided to move to the barn in Old Town. Yeah. And what year was that? It was April 1st, 12 years ago.
Well, so full circle. You started in a barn pretty much.
End up in a barn,
in a barn. That's no ordinary barn, though. How old is the barn you're in right now?
1912 the house was built. So it was a carriage house.
Wow.
And, there's a loft above where the hay was, and where the room is, all the power tools and where the animals were. And then the main room is where the bench and all the work space is.
So drafty in there?
It's all, we had a guy come out and we sealed it all up and reinforced it and put in insulation, power, internet, everything's in there. So you could almost live in there.
Yeah. So that you started out sort of tinkering around for your own personal use, and then it just built from there. I love that.
Yeah, my dad was kind of a part-time carpenter and plumber and everything he did. And so I had access to tools when I was a kid, and some neighborhood bands would come to me, can you fix this? I had no clue. Okay, duct tape and super glue,
A Frankenstein guitar comes to mind.
Yes, there's a lot of those around.
I would imagine so. So through that process, did you ever kind of develop your own way of doing something sort of that set an industry standard that became sort of the normal or your way of doing it? And everybody wanted that way? Anything specific?
I think so, kind of. Not on purpose, but there weren't any books. There was one book out on guitar repair Irving Sloane's Guide to Classical Guitar Repair, which is a whole different thing from rock and roll. Nylon string, different. And this is the only way you do this. And this is the only. And then another guy named Don Teeter said, no, this is the way I make my own tools. And I boogered a few of these up myself. So be careful when you do. And it was really nice. And it was kind of enlightening. Yeah. And, but a lot of the stuff I did, I see later on, somebody's got a patent on the tool and they're selling it for a lot of money. Things like that, where you had to make your own tools. There were no,
there was no instruction manual, nothing.
No, you just you had to use stuff like the long boards they use for leveling drywall and things like that to level frets. And you had to figure out which tool, which files to use, and which soldering guns and which solder to use. And trying to stay away from toxic stuff.
Well, you ultimately probably had your favorites too. Yeah, and that you've still hung on with today. I would imagine fixing guitars. Yeah,
I've got a neck rest on my bench that I made probably 50 years ago, and just put some carpet on it and tacked it down. And I'll clean it off or change the carpet, but it still works.
Yeah. So a neck rest, you're using that to position in a certain way to.
Yeah, you lay that on its back on the bench, and the neck rest keeps the headstock from hitting the back. Raises it up where you can work on it.
So throughout that whole period, have you collaborated with others in your industry, your counterparts?
There were guys. There was another repair guy named Dale Fortune we both worked at Rickenbacker at one time. Okay. Out of high school, and he had a local repair shop, and he trained another guy named Tom Reeser, has TR guitars up in Silverado Canyon right now.
And are they still?
And so there's a few guys. He's still around. Dale went to work at UPS up in Oregon. And then retired, but he's retired there and he's building guitars again. So
I would imagine it's a very specific industry where you kind of all know each other, and rely on each other's information. Well, I was cruising through your website, and oh my God, your client list. I had to write them all down. I mean, I didn't even get half of what here, but the Rolling Stones, Elvis Costello, Vince Gill, Keith Urban, Pink Floyd. I mean, I can go on and on and on. Tanya Tucker, some of the greats in the industry. And so they just kind of say, hey, Steve, I'm coming over and bring my guitar. And I find that fascinating that you get to meet these individuals and get to work on something that they're treasured and that they have a living. They work out of these guitars themselves.
Yeah. A lot of times their management or whoever would call if they're in town, and they'd look in the phone book. Oh, we got a problem here. Can you come down to the coach house and fix this on the spot? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So they don't all come to you necessarily.
Yeah, and a lot of it was just me selling them stuff. I got into buying and selling vintage instruments, going to pawn shops and garage sales. And then, the vintage market kind of started in the late 60s with old Martin acoustics and things, then got into electrics, Gibsons, Fenders, Gretsch's, all that. So I was kind of on the early edge of that where you could buy the stuff really cheap. And then the Japanese buyers would come over. They were the first ones, the Japanese, and then England a little bit. So I was able to sell, the road manager would call when they go, hey, we're coming to town. We're playing the Forum. What do you got? Yeah. And so I'd load up my Dodge van and back into the loading dock. They'd have people come out, pull the stuff out, put it on a table. The guys would come out of the dressing room and just go, that one. And the guy'd pull out the money. And here's your tickets. Go sit in the front row, So we got to spend a lot of time at the Forum and Long Beach Arena. San Diego Sports Arena.
That's insane to me. I just think that's amazing. You've seen so many great people, not only help them out, but seen what they do for a living firsthand.
Yeah.
That's so
interesting.
Cool. Yeah. Any sort of awkward stories that you could tell
One comes to mind. There was a Who tour, and John Entwistle was a big guitar collector. Pete, not so much. Townsend, he just played them. And he'd had some problems at the time. His hand was wrapped up. He'd cut his hand or something. He was real grouchy. So they were trying to medicate him a little bit. And he came out and, knocked over some tables and things. And
a little too much
Entwistle was trying to, don't never mind him, mate. It's like, and I'm going, is this guy going to come and punch me or something? But that was always, kind of funny. Yeah. And, the Stevie Ray Vaughan was a good story. Paula was with me. And he had done an interview with Jim Washburn. Jim was working for the LA Times at the time as a rock critic. And he was in town, and they started talking about a guitar player he knew that he emulated who had a double neck Dan Electro guitar. Okay. And Jim said, my friend Steve has one he wants to sell. So I get a call from Stevie Ray Vaughan. And he says, I'm staying in San Diego. We're coming up Pacific Amphitheater tomorrow. So I'll be there about 4:00. So can you bring that down?
Wow.
But he goes, I want you to do some modifications first. I want the bass neck turned into a 6-string bass neck. And so I had to get the Dan Electro bridge and the right tuners. And he told me how he wanted it tuned and what gauge strings. So Paul and I met him on the ramp. They took us down. And his Renee, his guitar tech, took the thing, went over and started tuning it up and put it on a stand. And then he came over and said, "Come on, we're going to have dinner." So we went and sat with him and had spaghetti and salad.
Oh my gosh.
And they kept coming in, "Hey, Stevie, 5 minutes. Man, we're talking guitars. Leave me alone." And so we talked forever, and they finally dragged him out of there.
He
and
was
that
in his
night,
element.
he took it on stage and played that guitar that night.
Wow.
And I said, I don't know of any guitar player in the world that wouldn't dance around an instrument for 6 months before they would take it to an actual gig and play it. And he took it out there, and there's a video of it with him, and it was Los Lobos and Jimmy Vaughn's band, Fabulous Thunderbirds.
Okay.
And Santana and Stevie Ray.
All right.
So it was a great show. And they're all on stage, and Stevie's playing the double neck, and they're just, and Carlos Santana's just looking at him like this, like, "What are you doing?" He's just tearing it up.
Like, I got to get me one of those.
And it's on YouTube. It's called Coltrane, I think, the song they were doing.
Coltrane.
Yeah.
What a group of people together, the greats, right there all jamming together.
Boy, it was loud. Santana was so loud. I told Paula we had to leave. My heart was getting rearranged from the congas.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, it's killing me. But it was fun. He was really nice. He'd got clean by then. And
He had so much trust in you to just take that guitar you just brought to him. He had an associate tune it up for him, and he just went with it.
Just took it out there and put it on a stand. Like, he's going to play that thing?
Yeah.
And he did.
So your reputation, are you pretty much referral based?
Yeah, pretty much. We did Yellow Pages ads for several years, and it didn't make much sense, They put in their guitar and lamp repair instead of amp repair. So I'd get a lot of calls, "Hey, can you fix my floor lamp?" No.
No.
So we dumped that, and it was mostly word of mouth.
Yeah. I think you told me a story about, I forget the group, but they were, I think, in Arizona, and their amp went out.
It was the Stones,
The Stones. And so they're like, "Hey, Steve, get on a plane, bring us an amp."
Yeah, Alan Rogan calls. He goes, "Keith needs his a Brown Fender Deluxe amp. That's his hotel room amp and his backstage amp. And his went out and something happened, so we sent it home."
Yeah.
And I go, "I got one." So he says, "Well, there's a ticket waiting for you at Orange County Airport."
Oh, wow.
So he flew the thing over there. They come pick me up. We got a rental car, and then it was at the what's that stadium called at the university there in Tempe? It's like Red Rock or kind of a thing like that.
Yeah.
And then we were backstage, and
Large
we're the only
venue.
ones sitting there. And here's, Joe Ely, and we got pictures of Mick and
Wow.
his model girlfriend or wife at the time. And Charlie Watts was nice. He sat on a picnic table and talked to us for an hour, just like a regular guy.
Yeah. That's so cool. I mean, they probably crave that when you're up that high in celebrity. When someone comes and you have a commonality, something in common, that probably they're like, "I got to talk to this guy as long as I can."
Yeah, because everybody else says, "Oh, can I have your autograph?" or "What kind of cologne are you wearing?" or
You're just
your
like,
shoes.
"Let's talk shop."
Yeah, it was fun. They were just regular guys.
Yeah. Have you ever journaled about these experiences? Kind of written things down?
Not really.
Yeah. And no desire to write books or
People say, "Write a book." I said, I couldn't remember. I said, "But if you give me a question or give me a key word, I'll go on it for an hour." I said, "So if you want to sit next to me while I'm working, we can do it that way."
Yeah.
But I don't want to write.
Yeah. So I can kind of picture you in your barn. You're there. You just get in your zone. Is it something you could just do for hours on end? Like, does Paula, your wife, have to come knock? "Hey, time to come inside."
She slides the pie plate under the door.
I love that.
But, it's nice in there. I got it set up with music and everything. I can put it on, or I'll put the Rifleman on in the background and just listen to it or something.
Is there a favorite instrument or type of guitar you like to work with?
I like doing electronic work on electrics, I think, probably more, like fretwork and things like that. It just hurts your hands holding files and leaning your neck down and trying to get things level.
And you call that fret work?
Yeah, the frets on the guitar, the metal frets, they wear out, so you have to level them out or pull them out and replace them when they get to a certain point where they can't play anymore.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of hand work and, physical
Tedious.
labor.
What changes have you seen throughout the industry from these 52 years? Technology has come into play. Types of strings have advanced. Thickness. Anything that stands out that a change?
The
or is
classic designs of post-World War II are the ones that are cherished now, and those are the collectible guitars. Gibson, Fender, Gretsch, Martin, the ones that are still in business finally got smart and started making the stuff they made originally, because that's what people wanted.
They do.
Every time they try, we're going to do a robot guitar. And it had a tuning thing to where you hit a knob and these things would light up, and it would, and these servo motors that were Bluetooth up there. And it was like, come on. And Gibson lost so much money on that. A company called Tronical in Germany developed the thing. And I think when Gibson got sold again, they owed them $10 million or something crazy like that. And so that was weird. But everything kind of goes back to the basic thing. You know, the classic guitars are the stuff from 48 to 68.
So the newcomers even coming onto the scene, I love that. They stick with the basics, right? Like, if it's not broken, why fix it?
Yeah, you're making a copy. You go to the trade show, and it's all copies of old Gibsons and Fenders. You know, when they're made a lot of Asian guitars. And most of the stuff is, the big markets in Asia these days, because it got too expensive to make stuff here.
Okay.
But they're really good. There was a period where it was kind of junk, the guitars you'd buy at Jimco or White Front or those places. The kids would run over there and there'd be a little Japanese guitar there, and they weren't very good. You break a string and you throw it away.
Much prefer going out and hunt for the classics, right? The parts. Are there any of the markets, flea markets, estate sales? Where do you zero in when you go on the hunt for these things?
Tell people I got my car fixed finally, because it used to be when I get to a pawn shop, it would pull to the right, but now if there's no parking, I just keep going. Because used to be, there was not a lot of import junky lower end stuff, but now the pawn shops will just buy that new and stock it like you would at the Broadway or Sears or whatever. But so now then you had the internet came along, so you've got YouTube and people demonstrating stuff, or you'll get we had the Recycler for a while and Penny Saver. Yeah. But now, you're on an airline reading a magazine, there's a whole article about vintage guitars, so everybody knows what their stuff's worth. Yeah. And then they put it on, there's eBay. When eBay came along, that made it, you could sit in your pajamas and go guitar shopping. You didn't have to go out and drive to Omaha to look at a guitar anymore.
I'm old fashioned though. I like the hunt.
Me too.
Getting out there, pounding the pavement.
We used to plan our vacations. I'd get the old Thomas Guide book out.
Oh, the Thomas
Guide. Okay, we're going to
Guide.
Phoenix. Oh, here's a pawn shop here. There's a flea market. There's an old music store. And we would go there. And then, now we can go.
You'd base your trip out on pawn shops.
Then we can go to the hotel and have a nice dinner, do what we're going to see a show in Vegas. But Vegas used to be a real good hot spot. You go over there and just fill up the van. Yeah. Because there was a thing called the Nifty Nickel. It was kind of like the Penny Saver. And you get that in Baker on the way in, and then read it on the way in and mark everything in and go call them at 3 a.m.
You clearly love what you do. Do you feel like you'll exit this industry at any time, or just keep on working?
I'm trying.
Oh, you are?
I retared 2 years ago.
2 years ago. How'd that work out?
She's shaking her head. You can see.
No retirement.
It didn't. It's like the Al Pacino thing, pulling me back in. Yeah. I feel bad because the customer will go, well, who am I going to go to? You got to do one more fret job. I go, I don't want to, but I don't have anybody. Okay, one more. Right. And then the next guy calls and you do it again. And it's like, I'm still working.
So you see a decline in the industry of repair associates. Is that
a lot of guys are getting the age where they got out of it or they passed on or something. So it's like, But I found my decline is I just only pick up every third call. Yeah. Or I'll pick it up and click it again.
We got disconnected. Well, who would you say is your longest standing client? I'm sure there's quite a few.
I'm trying to think back to the early 70s. I've got some guys that were in Kid Ramos, Kid.
I saw him yesterday.
I met him when he was in high school. He had a big old afro. He looked like he was in the Jackson 5 or so. Oh, yeah. He would, he was totally into Hendrix and all that. His graduation picture, I think he's wearing a red gown with this giant hair. And
I got to see that because that doesn't, I can't associate that with him. He was in with this kid
yesterday. He got into blues,
and
then he would come to my shop in Anaheim. He was working for the city of Anaheim on the street crew. Yeah. And he'd come in there on his lunch break and he'd be all dirty and play guitars. And I go, blues? And he goes, yeah, I want to get into blues. And I said, well, I know this guy named James Harmon. He's got a blues band. He's, from down south. And so I took Kid down to see him one night. So Kid shows up with his pompadour like this. He's got a, white shoes on, a red jacket with a white tie.
He's working it.
And I introduced him to Harmon, and Harmon goes, "If you could play anything like the way you look, man." And that night, Harmon's guitar player had got drunk and fallen asleep on the beach and got totally sunburned. And he's in there, and they sat him on a stool, and he's like, "Oh," and he kind of passed out. So he got Kid up to sit in, and he played the rest of the night.
Wow.
And the guy was, well, I won't say his name, though. He was one of Stevie Ray Vaughan was totally influenced by this guy and one of his early teachers. Yeah. So he ended up going back to Texas, and Kid got in the band.
Yeah.
And then Hollywood Fats was joined later, and they had, wow, both of those guys together. It was crazy.
Yeah. That's so cool, the opportunities that organically happen to people. Things are meant for a reason, right?
Yeah, and you don't think about, hey, well, let's go down there tonight. You do that every night of the week, and
look what happened.
Just clicked, And look at him now. He's just, his son, Johnny is
outstanding. Yeah. So you're going to be in it for a while, it seems. You're going to pick and choose, though. Yeah.
I'd like to try to balance it now. We enjoy camping a lot, so we try to go out once a month. Yeah. And maybe if I could work one solid week a month, I'd be happy. Yeah. But I'd enjoy playing music more now.
Yeah. So
now it's like I don't have to.
Yeah. Tell me about that. You've got your group, and you guys are traveling, playing. Are you writing your own music as well?
I'm not so much. Michelle does most of the writing, and Michelle Mangione Band. And we're down to a trio now. And so she's playing lead guitar and drums and singing. And Angela plays guitar and slide guitar and harmonica and keyboards and bass. And I get to bring the football, and they let me play, So
I love that. And for anyone in Southern California or surrounding areas, you've been at the Sawdust Festival in Laguna Beach as a group with Michelle for how many years now?
Over 20 now.
Over 20 years, yeah. So that will start when?
That starts, our first one is July, either the 5th or the 3rd, first week of July. Okay. During the week.
When the festival, Pageant of the Masters starts.
Yes, and the Sawdust Festival starts the last day of June, I think, and goes through Labor Day weekend, Sunday of Labor Day.
Yeah. And then tell me about your touring. You've got some upcoming.
We're not doing much out of town this time. We tried to work it out to where we could camp and tour at the same time, because everybody in the band has motorhomes or trailers now, so we all go camping together. So that's the rehearsals are usually around a campfire.
I love that.
So it's kind of cool. It's like a big family. The wives get along together and everybody's good. And so the next thing we got coming up is Thursday night, Fullerton Outdoor Market. They have a farmer's market and live music. Yeah, from 6:30 to 8:30 at the museum complex. So we're there, and then Saturday we're at H.H. Cotton's down in San Clemente. Yeah, and we've got a regular thing at Trevor's by the Tracks in San Juan Capistrano, right where the train lets you off.
Outstanding.
That place is great, and the food.
Yeah,
and he's got music 7 nights a week and 3 shifts on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Steve, that doesn't happen very often, does it? No. 7 nights a week.
Yeah,
there would be.
Doesn't.
Yeah.
But that place is so vibrant, and the food is so good. And you go in there, and they got that great outdoor thing, where the music is, and that bar, and the inside is, and just every time I go there, I think, okay, this is a fluke. The food can't be that good.
But it's consistent.
I even took it to go Sunday night, and it was still great.
You're right about the vibe down there, though, because you've got Los Rios Street that
right
runs
across
along
the
tracks there, and it's just a walking outdoor, all these old bungalows and
the Ramos house. That place is great.
Lots of good food down there. So that you'd never hesitate going down there and playing.
Yeah, it's fun.
What night again is that?
We're there the last Sunday of every month through December right now, from 2 to 5. We're the middle shift. Yeah. So they have a guy 11 to 1, 2 to 5, and then 6 to 9 closing.
Yeah. And we'll have to have Michelle on as well at some point, but she does so much give back. Can you tell us a little bit about that and speak on her behalf just briefly?
Yeah.
She does so much for so many people.
I think that started the New Orleans thing. She's really good friends with Grace Slick from Jefferson Airplane. And they were at Grace's one day watching TV about the oil spill and the hurricane and all that. Yeah. Grace says, we got to do something to help these people. Yeah. So Grace, was writing poetry and still writing lyrics. She won't perform anymore. But she gave Michelle some lyrics and said, I want to do something like kind of a Cajun feel. So we called in everybody we knew. I mean, we got Martha Davis on there from the Motels.
Wow.
We got Terry Nunn from Berlin. Everybody. Bill Medley's on there.
So cool.
And we just called, and we had Billy Zoom come in and play saxophone and guitar, and Kid Ramos is on it. And so we just call everybody we know, here, we're recording a song. And she wrote the song, recorded it, and we gave it to the... I believe it was called the Greater New Orleans Fund or Foundation that was helping a lot of the shrimp fishermen and things like that who were out of work because of the oil in the water.
Yeah.
And then we went down there and we did 4 or 5 gigs down there and donated all the proceeds and all that.
So awesome.
And then she got involved again when COVID started. She wrote a song called God Save the World. It's still a video out. And the money from that went to help the first responders and the doctors. At first, if you ended up in the hospital, there was no contact.
Yeah.
So they bought iPads and things to put them on so people could talk to their family and see them when they weren't allowed in there.
Very special.
And so they did that for a while. And then the next project was after Lahaina, the fire. Grace said, we got to do something.
Yeah.
So she wrote a song and we recorded it. Then we got about 100 ukulele players down on the beach and recorded the whole thing with a drone and cameras and had people singing the chorus and playing ukuleles.
That's phenomenal.
And we put that out and they raised about $30,000 or $40,000. And then she found a nonprofit that would give the money directly to the families, not through Red Cross or any of the other agencies.
Straight to the source.
Yeah, straight to the source. So there's no cut off the top,
And that's what I remember about Michelle is that everything seems to be direct.
Yes.
There's no red tape or, and
Yeah,
so
we will hand you the money if we.
so valuable when people need it the most
And it's
is right
hard.
then and there.
And it's such a delay to try to get any help from anybody, and trying to.
We'll have to twist her arm and get you guys on here. You didn't bring your guitar today, or did you?
I didn't. I don't really play guitar much because I damaged my hand, and so I can still play bass, but guitar is too hard for me now these days. So I thought it would be a prop.
Well, so these things we talked about with Michelle, all those are on YouTube.
Yes.
Where can we direct people to find you guys as a group through YouTube?
Yeah, MichelleMangione.com.
Okay.
Has links to the YouTube stuff, and that would be the God Save the World and the Lahaina Shine and what's the other one called? The New Orleans one.
Cajun
What's it called,
one.
Paula?
It's fantastic. I love hearing it.
I'm blanking.
Okay. Well, we'll direct them there.
Edge of Madness, that's what it's called.
Okay. And then Michelle Mangione on Instagram as well, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, great. And then what about Soest Guitar?
Soest Guitar has a website, and I've kind of accumulated everything, put everything on there, all my interviews, press stuff, videos, anything. So that way, if people say, well, what did you do? I go, here, check this. Yeah. Everything's on there.
And you've done a fantastic job. I navigated it so easily. It's not overwhelming. It's to the point.
Still there? Good.
Yeah, no, it's still there.
Yeah, we just moved it. We had a different host, and it was kind of weird moving it after all these years.
Still there.
And Michelle she put the website together.
Just remember, folks, that Steve is trying to retire, not get more work. So
yes.
not that you'll be bombarded with.
I've kept all my bands, that I've worked for years, like Los Lobos and No Doubt and, Social Distortion. And those guys, before they go on tour, they'll bring over a load of stuff and we'll still do it. I'll go, shh, don't tell anybody.
Well, I'm full disclosure, we're neighbors pretty much, right? And I take a certain way home so I can go by your house. I'm like, who's leaving that garage today? Yeah. Who am I going to see in the carport,
Yeah, the most exciting one lately was when they announced that No Doubt was going to do a reunion and play Coachella.
Yeah.
And it turned out it was a pretty big deal. Everybody who was there said that was the highlight of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And Tom, the guitar player, said, I've sold off most of my stuff. I'm a photographer now. So which guitar should I? So he brought over a few guitars and we set them up, changed some pickups and stuff. And so they were pretty excited. They said, this is really weird. It's like surreal.
Yeah.
And they thought, this will never happen again.
Wow. But there it did.
So I'm wondering what's going to happen next.
Yeah, that was a highlight.
Oh, it was really good.
Yeah.
I was so proud of them.
When Gwen Stefani climbed up on that light fixture.
You're like, oh no, I can't look.
I was like, wow, amazing, inspirational. So for those out there who may want to venture into this world, who are in their own garages, tinkering around with stuff, any advice to lead them down the road? Do it, don't do it, stay away.
It's like anything else, I guess. It'd probably be almost in the arts.
Yeah.
You got to really love it and just do what you do and have it come out of you.
Yeah.
Don't listen to anybody else. I mean, you're never going to get rich doing it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Go to school and become a lawyer or something if you want, if you're into money. But if you just want to do something that you can be your own boss and you enjoy it, the handwork of it and the history of it, it's exciting to me. I've always been into, well, how did Gibson start? How did Fender start? And so reading everything, collecting all the old catalogs so you know what was on the guitar when it was new. Because people go, no, they've always made them this way. No, the original ones had this kind of pickup in it or this neck on it.
All those nuances.
And so it's nice to have the reference material.
Yeah.
And so it took a while to get to where people would trust me. I messed up a few. I buy expensive guitars and
52 years later, though.
Yeah, you do it enough. And if you haven't learned anything, do something else.
Yeah. Have you thought about an apprentice or taking anyone under your wing and showing the
oldest daughter she started working for me. She was about 14, just kind of cleaning up and meeting customers. Then I taught her how to rewind pickup coils and do fret work. And it got to a point where people come in and they'd look around me and see her and, can she do the fret job over there? Oh, yeah.
Sure.
But then she got married and had 2 kids, and now I can't get her to work.
Life
I thought it'd be great to keep the name,
Yeah.
And our son Jesse is a player, but he'll go, Dad, change my strings for me. I go, I'm your roadie now.
I love that.
But he didn't have any interest in that end of it. He played, but he was he'd be a little kid in the backseat of the car, and an Eagles song would come on, and he'd know the changes in it in his head. He could go in the house and then play it.
Oh,
and I said, gee, I ruined 50 record players. My dad would come on, what's wrong with the turntable? I go, trying to put the needle back down. And
where do you gravitate toward music when you're in your space, your zone, listening to something? What's your
I try to listen to new stuff. I like Larkin Poe a lot. If you're familiar with them, the two sisters.
I'm not.
They're from Nashville. They were bluegrassers originally. Now they have a band and they tour. And they started out like on YouTube.
Yes,
and they put stuff up. One plays lap steel, and the other one plays guitar and sing. And they've really got a following now. And I've been following them for about 6 years.
It's kind of that old school country.
Yeah,
tone
and it's
to
cool.
It.
It's like rock stuff.
Yeah.
And then what's that band? They're coming to town. Blackberry Smoke.
Okay.
They're like a combination of Skynyrd and the Allman Brothers and everything. Southern rock. Guys playing real guitars through real amps. They got a carpet on the ground. And I mean, there's really good stuff. And then the Allman Brothers' sons have a band called, the Allman Betts Band, I believe.
Okay.
Really good stuff. And it's kind of throwback to 70s, but it's real rock stuff. It's not synthesized and it's not AI and it's not,
Well, I think this younger generation coming up, they appreciate and love all this, what I would call vintage vibe or music.
Yeah, they got onto vinyl and all of a sudden like vinyl, whoa, you got a turntable? What's that?
Really cool to see them, a whole new generation appreciating a certain genre and style of music. Yeah.
They have a kid come up at shows, hey, you guys know any Pink Floyd? A 9-year-old kid. And I'm going, your parents have a record? Yeah. Cool. You have cool parents.
I love that. Well, Steve, I think this is a great place to end our conversation, but I'd love to have you back with Michelle and have you guys sing a little bit on the next go around.
Sure, that'd be fun.
Yeah, and I encourage everyone to look into what Steve does and his history. It's pretty outstanding, and thank you for your time today.
Thanks for having me.